All right, everybody, welcome back to another great panel here with Grow World. We have some industry experts, and we are talking about the bottom line of under canopy lighting. So we're going to give them the hard-hitting questions and see if they can actually answer them. Looks like these guys definitely can handle it. So we're going to dive in. Guys, these are probably some elementary questions, but really what we're trying to do, too, is get people who are not using or not familiar with the benefits and the ROI of under canopy, we're trying to get them more information. Cool? All right, the first one's going to be, is it actually providing the ROI and the biggest yields that they say it is?
Sure. Yeah. I've been doing lighting for 10 years in cannabis, and typically a high ROI driver. But I think at this point, it's hard to find something that is going to return as fast as under canopy. There really is, across a lot of genetics, across a lot of facilities, we see similar results, and 1 to 2 harvest ROI.
Yeah, no, I'd 100% agree. I don't think there's one singular thing that's going to allow an instant boost as people are seeing with under canopy. And percentage-wise, you should easily be expecting 15 to 30% yield increases. And I mean, that's the reason why we're all here right now. So,
yeah, and the variability of the return is directly related to the quality of your original lighting, so the worse the original lighting, your top light is, whether you don't have enough canopy penetration, enough intensity, or the wrong spectrum, the more return you'll get by supplemental lighting, whether it comes from the side or the bottom or whatever. But the reason you see large variability is because it depends on what they're starting with.
Yeah, 100%. At this point, the highest, fastest ROI that we're seeing is certainly with under canopy, as well as I'd mentioned side lighting that we're doing. But the ROI on supplemental is huge. 15 to 30%. The only thing I would say is that it does correlate a little bit with your facility and your facility design. So that is important too. So you may get more or less depending on what the capacity of your facility is to feed and nurture those plants.
So some of y'all already touched on this, but so commercial facilities are hitting typically that 20 to 30% yield increase, pretty standard.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and just like we were just all kind of discussing, I think we see higher yield return when top lighting quality is poor. We've seen in greenhouse that are underlit, you can see north of 50, 60%, but it's just a balance of, we have a light hungry crop that can take more light, and it just depends on how we deploy it.
Yeah, for sure. Putting under canopy into an already dialed in facility is certainly important to see the yield increase. So if that's already dialed in, and then adding the under canopy, that's when we're talking to cultivators, you're seeing those more consistent 25-30% marks.
And Mikhail made a great point there about the rest of the facility, because if you don't have enough dehumidification or whatever, adding more light and more transpiration, you're not going to get the benefit. So that's everything we're talking about here is assuming that their environmentals are stable and can handle it. So that's an important thing to note.
The other thing too that maybe it correlates to the 20 or 30% to the 20 or 30% increase in yields is also the reduction. You can have a reduction in labor as well, which also can augment and add even more to that savings. So that's a savings that's not even figured in.
So then to add on to that, we're talking about savings and making money. Is it really turning my lowers, my small popcorns into something that is top shelf or sellable?
Yes, 100%. You're seeing, C's become B's, B's A's, and you're absolutely seeing that lower labor, increased bud growth, and it's a true yield increaser.
Yeah, I think the current market challenge right now, I think is in most mature markets, there's a plenty of supply, right? So it's increasing the quality and increasing the value of the SKU that this flower can go into. So dollars per square foot is, I think, a metric that is more important necessarily than yield per square foot when we're talking about under canopy. Is like, how much of this flower can you convert into eighths or quarters that are selling for a higher price than your smalls?
Yeah, I was recently speaking to somebody in their R&D room, and previously where they'd be receiving about 3,500 grams of C or lower quality buds, that's shifted to only about 900 grams now. So there's a pretty noticeable difference.
We've seen that all the time when we switch people from other lights to our lights that have the optics. because the whole point is to get bathe the plant in light, maximize the photosynthetic potential. So, with all of our products, we use optics to get more light on leaf. Coefficient of utilization is the technical term. But the less you have of that, if you've got, if you don't have any kind of optics or anything like that, and you've got shading effect from your top light, the reason those B's and C's are so small is they're not getting the amount of energy. So however you get the light to the whole plant, whether it be with optics from the top or under canopy or whatever, a healthy plant will have much better lower bud size.
We all know this industry is always full of skeptics, always full of bro science. When we talk about real science, can you dispel some of the myths that the lighting from underneath the leaves is usable or not? A lot of people have things to say about that.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to put it is, are we converting this light into biomass, right? So like if we weren't seeing any yield increase and we weren't seeing flower size increase, it would be very easy to say, yeah, well, of course the plant's not using it. But the way that we see the plant use it is in those two metrics. And so I think it's pretty easy to say that, obviously, even though it's coming from under the plant is utilizing the light.
Yeah, I think there's enough scientific evidence out there to support the idea that if light is coming from the bottom and even the underside of the leaf, that it's still going to be a net positive.
Yeah, I mean, the term I used a couple minutes ago, bathing the plant in light. Ultimately, if that's what you achieve, it doesn't really matter what direction it's coming from. In nature, light's reflected all over the place, and it's getting diffuse light. So that's what plants are used to. I think some of the questions come in about, well, if you're only shooting red from underneath, is that getting absorbed or reflected or whatever? But also with your under canopy, you should be adjusting the spectrum to get what you're missing from your top light too.
I think there's definitely spectrum plays a key role in what you deliver at what part of the plant and what the plant is able to take at different places. So underneath, we're seeing that the reds and the reds, heavier red is impactful for penetrating the leaf underneath and penetrating that plant to give that yield. But we're also playing with side lighting and seeing that the side lighting, we can actually deliver a less energy and into the leaf, and sometimes can be more efficient at delivering light into the leaf because it's going into the side and the stomata of the plant. So we're seeing that really, the whole encompassing that plant is very important, but also we're seeing that we can deliver it not just underneath, but also on the side, and also can really tailor the energy for what we're doing.
So let's keep on that point as well, because we're hearing under canopy and now we're hearing enter canopy, right? So kind of talk about the differences and the benefits of each.
Yeah, it's the same idea, right? Let's say we have X amount of watts. Well, how do we utilize those watts to deliver photons to the plant surface as efficiently as possible? So it really is a challenge of your space and, side lighting or under lighting or top lighting. We're looking at it as a whole system. So what does each provide? Where are your gaps? Edge of tables, in between plants. The problem with inner canopy, it works really well in vine crop because those crops stay there for 9 months, 12 months. But there's just so much labor need in cannabis and so much room turnover that lights inside the canopy are going to have higher cleaning requirements and different things that we want to make sure that we're developing products that help our cultivators be more efficient and see those labor reductions and not get in the way.
Just to expand on that. Yeah, at the end of the day, we're just talking about how could we, provide more photons to the plant on a more even basis. And I mean, inter canopy, under canopy, they're all essentially achieving a similar goal.
Yeah, as I describe it, it's just supplemental lighting. So where it comes from, whatever, it doesn't really matter that much. You're just taking whatever you're missing and you're filling in that gap, and however from this location and the spectrum.
Yeah, I'd say inter not so much, but side, perimeter on the side and then underneath. And it's a matter of really styles, as was said, where the facility, the layout, how things are done, but also, looking at labor, the different techniques and different grows of different labor and practices of how they approach their facility as they come in. But overall, with all aspects, we're seeing significant lower labor costs. So there is, whether you put side or underneath, we're seeing that you have you can significantly save on that labor, and it doesn't really make a difference anymore because you're not in the plant as much.
So besides just the added benefit of more light, is there any benefits to my microclimate? Does it help with pests? Does it help with PM? Is it easy to clean?
Yeah, I don't think there's any evidence that it really helps with pests. Maybe spectrally, if you're doing, something with UV, you could claim some fungal reduction. I think that needs to be studied heavily, and obviously putting UV light into fixtures that point up at people is definitely a consideration that you have to make. But I think really we are adding more light into facilities that sometimes aren't, as we were discussing earlier, aren't optimized for even what they currently have, right? So, as lighting vendors, I think we always want to push on, sales and make sure that we can get as many of our fixtures in customers' hands. But we want to make sure that we're approaching these things holistically and we understand, the entire scope of the room, and we're, keeping account of what we're actually putting in.
Yeah, I think the under canopy, it just helps provide a little bit more of a symmetrical climate, which sure can have some benefits. And like you said, like pest reduction, maybe arguable, but yeah, a more symmetrical climate is the benefit that we see.
The key thing for any supplemental light, grow environments are damp environments anyway. When you're down closer to where the fertigation is being delivered, you're more likely to be wet. So never consider it under canopy unless it's waterproof. You want IP67 rating. You want to be able to power wash that place, that thing. Most top lights aren't waterproof. Some are, but especially when you're talking down closer to where that water is, it has to be waterproof.
You definitely get an improvement in microclimates because when you have just on the top and you're delivering light, you get a huge reduction, the inverse square law of bringing light down into the canopy. But by bringing more light, photons, ultimately delivering more energy, you're delivering more heat, you get more circulation of airflow. And actually, this is you're seeing an improvement on the microclimates that typically reduction in the microclimates underneath the plant. And that's what's also helping it grow because you have now more circulation and more heat. That's driving air movement, so you get a more natural airflow down there, and you get a healthier plant, healthier growth, and increased yields.
So my next question with that is, we're seeing a lot of different under canopy styles and look and feel to these different things. What are some of the biggest engineering challenges when you're trying to meet the needs of growers, try to make sure that you get them the ROI or the yields that they're looking for, keep it clean, and just offer value instead of another thing to worry about? What are some of the engineering challenges when you're trying to innovate and create things like this to take growers' facilities to the next level?
Sure. Yeah, I think a couple of things we've done. One, the tables are crowded. There's lots of plants, lots of irrigation. People need to get in there and work. So we've developed a slider system to keep the lights off the table. They get mounted to essentially to the table. But I think the big challenge with under canopy, especially at the lower wattages, is deployment height. You've got different crop structure and in different size plants. So, making sure that the fixture is, an optimal position to deliver light, I think, is a consideration. And then, we've done some work to do some work with 480 volts, which, keeping that low down by the people with water is a dangerous task, but we've managed to do some remote driver work to keep 480 volt away from people. So there's a couple considerations we've done.
Yeah, I kind of made a point on this already regarding the it's a damp environment, it's wet. Having a high IP rating is certainly important, and you want to make sure that you have a fixture that's going to be resistant to those. And one of the other things regarding, well, maybe not the under canopy lighting itself, is actually the stands. People have, I've talked to many people, and they have a wide variance of the different heights that they might need depending on strain and just the typical way that they grow. So it's something that we didn't really think about initially, and something that we had to kind of re-engineer from our first initial output of under canopy.
For us, I think it's about matching the exact thing that the customer needs. So if their top light, for example, was a very red-heavy fixed spectrum, the last thing you want to do is add more red. If because of 660 nanometers, your tip bleaching spectrum, you get too much red, that's bad. So if somebody's got a red heavy top light, you want to give them something that has very little red. If they're short on red or they have no far red, you want to be able to add that in your supplemental. So you either have a very spectrum adjustable under canopy light, or you've got to come up with something that's going to work for most people if it's going to be fixed spectrum. But yeah, guess what most of the top light people are going to have, and come up with the best solutions, or a 2-channel, or whether it's 2-channel, 4-channel, how you're adjusting your spectrum on the under canopy to match what's missing.
So 2 things that are extremely important in cultivation or that affect cost are labor. We talked, I mentioned labor before, but so the things that we look at when we're considering things, labor, so failures, cleaning, all of these other things. So the things that we look at doing is really removing the driver out of the fixtures and centralizing power. So that's one thing. So we can minimize driver failures and other things and maintenance inside the room. So we can drive then power and optimize what you're doing. So that's a huge thing. But then also there is a lot of labor in cleaning those fixtures, and that's one thing that we've looked at as a benefit of side lighting is the reduction in labor, because you can it's a lot less pieces to pull out. It's much easier. Wash it down, pull it off to the side. So that's an area that we're looking at as a real benefit for that versus under canopy. But
So there's a lot of tech coming out. We hear AI, we hear automation these days all the time. What's next in the next 3 to 5 years of lighting in general, but also under canopy and all these new advancements? What do you think is next?
I think these days we're seeing just a proliferation of under canopy lights as kind of the development of a lot of lighting companies. So I really think in the next 3 to 5 years, like all facilities, especially new facilities that are going to design, will just have this as part of the mechanical load. I think that's what we all have challenges with now, is trying to fit retrofits and more power into rooms that aren't set up to do so. So there's a little bit of work to do with that. I think in the future we'll start to see that, and continually drive efficiency, multispectral tuning, things along that nature.
Yeah, I think the shift in what's being requested more and more is just spectrum tuning, just having the flexibility to go from one side of the spectrum to the other, depending on strain and other personal preferences of growers. There seems to be a lot of different styles out there, so just being able to have a singular product that allows you to match a wider amount of growers is, more spectral tuning, I think, is what's going to be happening. And AI, I mean, yeah, sure. We all know it's coming. Like, it's coming. I haven't thought too much going forward about that yet, but it's definitely it's on our minds.
Complete integration you get a particular genetic, you have a recipe that comes with it, exactly what spectrum it wants at what phase of its growth, how the environmentals all tie together, your fertigation, using AI and sensors probably to do all that. That's going to be the holy grail of exactly what it needs and you deliver it.
yeah, I think Nick, you said it right. Recipes is key, and that's one of the things that we, when we're building facilities and considering the extra transpiration, the feeding, the challenges with humidity, and all of those things, of bringing that into the design, complete integration, and really where we're driving it and looking at technology is the driverless lighting, and then being able to deliver light at the top or the side or under, if that's there, to optimize the photons where you need them, when you need them, and also being able to sense if the plant is resting, taking a nap, or using sensors to really see what the plant is doing, so that you can start to look at reducing energy. I mean, this is a huge, we're here to increase growth, but also minimize the energy consumption. And I think that's a whole area that needs to be looked at and will be looked at over the next 3 to 5 years, is what is the plant doing, and do we need all that energy all the time?
And so if I'm a newbie to under canopy lighting, when do I introduce it? At what stage is it going to bring me the most benefit, the most return?
Yeah, I think what we see with a lot of our commercial customers is that same idea, which is like, yeah, can I run it at 100% starting week 1 of flower? Sure, you could. Do you need to? Probably not. I think week 2 or 3 is a fine spot to start. You'll still influence some lateral branching, some of the vegetative growth, but you'll have the light there. So when the plant starts, flowering, building biomass, it has sufficient light at the level.
Yeah, I've had a pretty wide range of conversations in terms of when people are actually turning the under canopy on, anywhere from day one as soon as they flip to flower, usually at a lower wattage, about 50%, and then just kind of progressively bring it up about 5% every few days. But I have some people, if they have a faster growing plant, they might wait until day 21 to turn them on. So I mean, there's anything from day 1 to day 21, and there's strain dependent, and also there's always going to be some personal preference of the grower in there as well. So it's a fairly wide range based on conversations I've had with cultivators.
And it depends on what your spectrum is already. So if what you don't want to do is add red before the full plant morphology has been developed, because that's going to cause it to stretch. So, if your under canopy is adjustable, you can just take your red out. You can just start it on day 1. If it's a red heavy fixed spectrum, you don't want to turn it on until at least 2 weeks into flower.
So the 2 parts to your question, yes, you should immediately start looking at, under or side canopy lighting and consider that. I mean, it's just really it's an immediate return. So you should be doing that. So everybody should be considering that and moving forward. And then, how you bring that in, a lot of that is a little bit on strain dependent. I mean, we've seen differences in yield and improvements based on strain and intensity and things like that. We also have, talking to some of our cultivators that, learning how to properly defoliate the plant and, make sure you leave enough biomass there to grow the buds and grow your mass. So there's also a learning curve of when to do it, but how to do it, and that's coming. So those are all things that we're, working with and bringing forward, but no question that it should be done.
So as a cultivator out there scaling my facility, looking at how to get, labor reduction or any return, what do you think is the biggest piece of advice? You guys can just go down the row. What's the most unique selling point for y'all, for your brand, your style of under canopy that you're going for? A lot of these questions, and to be honest with you, these are questions that I ask as objections when your salespeople call me. So I want to know, what's the final pitch on under canopy and each one of your unique brands?
Yeah, from JumpLights' perspective, we take a custom approach to every opportunity. We have a lot of different spectral options, a lot of different power options. A lot of our fixtures are modular, so we don't believe that there's one product that fits all, and we take each individual facility with its own variables and approach it that way. And I think that's where we're able to maximize efficiency and output and minimize overall capex and create a win-win scenario for the customer and the company.
Yeah, we did a significant amount of trials early on, mainly testing different wattages within spectrum. And again, when we're talking about delivering photons to those lower bud sites, we did see a significant increase with slightly higher wattage under canopy compared to maybe some options that are out there. So I'd definitely take a look at what is available and try to maximize the yield that you're going to get from your under canopy. And yeah, don't be afraid to do some trials, trial some other companies. We invite side-to-side competitions. So yeah.
This may be sacrilege since it's an under canopy panel, but in the perfect world, you shouldn't have under canopy. You should use optics or something else to bathe the plant in light without having to have 2 fixtures to clean and to buy. So you might be evaluating whether you should replace your top light with something different. But if you've just recently bought a top light and the last thing you want to go do is rip all that out and waste that money, then you absolutely need to start looking at the under canopy or other options.
Well, we're going to deliver you a complete solution of 360 degrees light, delivered with remote power that you don't have the failures in the room. So you can have side lighting, top lighting, under canopy, all driven by centralized power in a way that you can have recipes for where you want to deliver that and how you are. So I'd say if you're considering it and want to go that route, I mean, I think it's going to be your most painless approach and save you a lot of maintenance and deliver you a lot of a high ROI.
Right on. You guys all sound like a really good partner to get into this with. So I am out of all my questions, and I want to open up to everybody that's been here on the panel. I can kind of jump around, bring the mic down. If you guys have any burning questions for these guys and the under canopy or lighting experts. Yeah.
All right, so right now we run HDMS lighting, and we want to add under canopy lighting. What should we expect as like a new norm for like a per pound kind of like? What's the increase that we should have
In your HPS room?
Yeah.
Do you know what your current light levels are? You know, I'm a guess.
Go,
I'm gonna guess 500 ppft average. So yeah, you know, that's where we'll see. Like we were talking about earlier, if you have a brand new LED room or high density HPS room that's hitting north of 1,000 ppft, you might see a little less, you know, impact of under canopy. But if you're kind of on a 25 square foot HPS layout that's hitting 500-600 ppft on average, you know, yeah, if you're on the lower side, you'll see even bigger impact, right? I mean, it's the same deal. Like if you're gonna, you know, increase top light at the same rate, you would see a relative. However, for a lot less money, you can come in and you know, increase yields and light levels with under canopy versus top light. Top light, you know, you're just gonna need more power up there, and you know, dollar per watt's gonna cost you a little bit more, but yeah.
You grow big plants or short plants? Or maybe big plants.
Yeah.
So then what you need is the penetration from top or your supplemental, because you want to be probably 1,000 to 1,100, but don't just measure it at the top of the canopy. Go a foot or 2 feet down. You know, so if you're growing 5 foot tall plants, what matters is what's your PPFD in the middle. And maybe you have to measure that without a plant being there for the shading, but you know, take your meter, start at the top and see what that is, and then go to where your middle of your plant is and see, and then what you're missing from that's the intensity of the supplemental you need to add.
We have a customer, Bonsai Buzz. They grow huge plants, and they, you know, because of that, they actually went with a light perimeter around the plant because the plants were so big. So, you know, it's also something to consider.
We got a few more minutes left. Anybody else want to jump in on a question? Jump right back over here.
So we're seeing, we're hearing about also both under canopy and side canopy lighting. If you're selling under canopy and under canopy exclusively, what's your selling point against side lighting? And if you are offering side, what are you saying are the differences in evaluating for your unique facility?
I'm kind of curious. We don't offer side lighting, and I'm certainly not opposed to it by any means. But I guess I would be interested to learn a little bit more specifically about your side lighting and what makes it different from putting an under canopy on the side.
It's the same. It doesn't. I mean, it generates photons, and where you place it, whether you know put it from the top, the bottom, the side, it's just a light generating device. So it's supplemental lighting is supplemental lighting. It doesn't,
Right.
You're getting too fine detailed about trying to call it one or the other.
Again, it's really about deployment. I think, you know, if you're able to deploy light in an efficient manner and it doesn't impede labor, I think that's the only problem with side lighting that I have is it's, you know, it's good for part of the facility. You wouldn't use it for every table. If you had every table, you know, wrapped in lights, you wouldn't be able to access the plants. You wouldn't be able to do plant work. So obviously you can move lights out of the way and do things, but the more times you move these lights and you hit them and you bang them, the less they last. So I think it's really about like finding the solution that's right. You know, side lighting isn't necessarily new. I mean, you can go walk around here. There's been people have been doing this stuff for 10 years, and it's just, I think we're getting to a place where we can productize and create solutions at a cheaper rate for customers. And side lighting is certainly an option, but it depends on how, you know, you want to deploy it.
I think you got to holistically look at each facility and look at how people are doing things and what they have available for, you know, equipment or things to mount and how they're doing it. But it does have to fit in. But I think there's you know, there's a strong case. I mean, you could make a case for both, but I think we have to look at each facility and see how we can optimize it within that facility. But I think there's efficient ways to implement it.
The other thing you got to keep in mind is the uniformity throughout your whole facility. So, you know, if you lights middle row and you got 3 in a row and you have side light, well, that middle row is not going to get as much. So if you have just one plant, you have light all the way around it, you know, that's perfect. But people don't have just one plant. They've got a lot. So how do you get uniformity across your whole facility in terms of the amount of lighting?
With side lighting, from the feedback that I hear, the first knee-jerk reaction is around the photosynthesis of the light, the transpiration of the leaf, the stomata, and some skepticism around lighting from underneath versus being able to hit the top of the leaf with side lighting.
I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is just to make sure that you maximize the photosynthetic potential of the plant, which means you've got to get photons to the middle of the canopy. How you do it is all up for debate, and there's different approaches. But at the end of the day, that's what all this does. The whole reason people are getting benefit out of this supplemental lighting, wherever it's coming from, is because you're getting more photons to a leaf that can turn into energy for the plant.
Right on, guys. We'll go down the line really quickly. Just say your name, your title, the company, and where people can find you if
Yeah.
they have taken away any valuable information from this panel.
Absolutely. Riley Leach, VP of Sales at JumpLights, based in Maryland. You can find us at JumpLights.com, and you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or email or anything like that. So.
Noel Nada, Illuminar Lighting. Basically take care of operations and a little bit of sales, whatever needs to be done. And you can find us at illuminarlighting.com. We're based out of California. And yeah, happy to chat with anybody after.
Nick Pastushin, CEO, majority owner of Scynce LED and also Dual Draft, which is an airflow system. We're right there for our exhibit. For those of you that are here in the room, take a walk over and check it out, or ScynceLED.com.
Mikhail Segal, CEO of TSRgrow. You can find us at tsrgrow.com, and I would look forward to talking to you about really driving remote powered lighting. That's really the key, and also about side lighting, because I do think it is a differentiator and something we should look at.
Right on. Well, thank you guys for joining me. Seriously, a lot of value in this. If you guys haven't connected with Grow World and all these brands, please do so. And we will see you guys on the next panel here at MJBizCon.
Thanks, Colton.
Says.
Thank you.
You can sign up to try all of these folks and their lights at growworld.com.
Please do.
Thank you very much.